Hey there, cats and kitties, and I'm the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and this is going to be a brief little review for Btooom, Episode 6. Very intriguing episode in a characterization framework, because we do see that the sort of bonds that are growing between the main trio we're following right now, Ryota, Taira, and Himeko, are definitely being strengthened, but at the same time tested to their limits. Now, we're picking up right where we left off with the Komodo dragons sort of coming in and endangering the trio in their little camp, chasing them out of it. Himeko ends up passing out, and Ryota very sort of gallantly goes back for the explosives they left behind, trying to get rid of the dragons. And we see that, Taira is basically trapped. He ends up getting bitten by one. And as they're walking through the woods, they're trying to get away. First thing I'm reminded of is Jurassic Park, those velociraptors, with how these Komodo dragons just seem to be stalking them every step of the way, even getting ahead of them a little bit. And there's a point where we see that Taira, who's carrying all of the goods, all of the food and the explosives and so forth, manages to get separated from Ryota, who's carrying Himeko. And there was this great little bit of dialogue where basically Taira's relating to Ryota that at one point in a previous episode he thought for sure Ryota would leave him for dead. And there was a moment where when those Komodo dragons were coming into the camp, he once again thought, nobody would have disputed the fact had Ryota just gone away and left them to die, to save himself essentially. And we keep seeing this over and over again, this sort of moralistic gallantry on the part of Ryota, and I just find this fascinating considering the backdrop, this whole Btooom Island, everybody fighting life and death, that kind of stuff. Now, there is this moment, though, where we do see Ryota calling back on Taira's words when they did get separated, and he's thinking the same thing. He's thinking, Taira left us. He had everything. He had the explosives. He had the food. There's no reason for him to stay and try to help us. He must have left us. And he's just brought to that borderline of anger. And right at the moment when those Komodo dragons catch up to him, sure enough, here comes Taira. He was looking for them. He was desperate to find them. I do think it's a little bit of a stretch that, Ryota had convinced himself Taira was probably using the sonar device every single time he did, because, Ryota just went nuts with the thing trying to find Taira. But nonetheless, it did come to fruition with Taira catching up to them and using one of his own explosives. Now, everybody on this island seems to have their own type of explosive, and I'm finding all these different types fascinating. There are timered ones, there are snap ones which explode on impact, we have that one that from the kid Kira, they were implosion ones, and now we have Taira, who seems to have these little helicopter propelled explosives that can actually hone in on designated targets that he so chooses. The only drawback being that they don't carry as much of a punch as some of the other explosives that other people have on the island, but it does buy them time enough to get away from the Komodo dragons, and they find this sort of beat up ramshackle building on the edge of a cliff, and this is where they kind of make a safety zone for a little bit. And of course we have that testing of trust once again, because there's a point where they're trying to get the unconscious Himeko up to the top level, up via a rusted ladder, and they drop back to the ground, and we have Taira basically ending up a move that I thought was going to be very sacrificial. It turns out that he's just trying to ward away these Komodo dragons with his explosives, finding out the hard way that it's not quite working. And we have Ryota go up to the top level, and here we have another example where Taira's looking up at Ryota thinking, you scumbag, you screwed us over, you got up there to the safety and left us down here to die. What are you going to do, steal our stuff and all of this? And it turns out, Ryota is sort of strategizing. He's noticed there's a wind flow coming off the sea, going back toward the woods. He's decided to use one of the gas explosives that has like this acidizing gas that just eats away at everything, which was one of Himeko's, and in her unconscious state, he basically manipulates her hand to press the button, and he tosses this thing and takes out like 5 of the Komodo dragons that are just on the periphery of this little area, saving them all effectively. And so it's very intriguing that, as I say, the trust, the faith between these people is going to be thoroughly tested. Now, once Himeko actually wakes up, we have, again, moments where, because Taira's wounded with the bite on his leg, and they have to sterilize it, and there's a couple moments where she's kind of like, I'm just going to leave you guys. I can't trust men. Don't touch me. Get away from me. She's still very scared and very scarred with her having been attacked twice and seeing her friends attacked. Now, she does manage to bite her lip and hold down Taira as Ryota pours on the alcohol to try to sterilize the wound, and shortly thereafter, the tables are turned because we see that Himeko's looking at her cell phone, looking at some old images, and when Ryota comes over to ask her about it, kind of trying to make amends between them, she very much, once again, shuns him him, wants nothing to do with him. Well, then he turns the tables by saying, how did you get all this food? How did you get all these explosives? Who did you murder? How many people did you murder? So now she is under suspicion as much as she cast that suspicion, that doubt on the both of them. And not for breaking a lack of concentration, this is interrupted by a radar ping coming from who knows where, and basically one of those three is detected. Himeko believes it's her, but once again, Ryota being the sacrificial, moral, right-sided guy, he says, you know what? I'm going to go out there, I'm going to get this guy, whoever he is, away from us, then I'll come back and we'll finish this discussion. And so we have Ryota running out into the woods, and he runs into that big, muscle-bound Native American-looking dude who was one of the three that, back in episode 2, Himeko stumbled onto. They made her their leader for a little while, and then this guy killed one of the others, led the fat guy and her to run away. The fat guy attacked her, and so it's all coming full circle, it seems. And it's going to be very intriguing because, of course, we have that little preview of the next episode where it looks like this guy somehow manages to capture Himeko, and God only knows what's going to happen and how much over the edge this is going to push her and Ryota, because Ryota's words seem to hint at the idea, as I suspected in my last review, that maybe he's falling for her or becoming interested in her. So it should be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Once again, I'm just fascinated by the relationships of these characters to see if they will actually form bonds and work together, or if the frustrations of the situation on this island will succeed in, breaking them apart, keeping them distanced from each other. Now, we did have that scene flashing back to Tyrannosaurus, where we have that guy who sent everybody to this island very ominously, coming in and acting all flamboyant, and we see that he's got this sort of drone-like guy. He's really zoned out, staring at the computer screens, and they're keeping tabs on everything that's unfolding on this island, and that just really has me intrigued. I just have to wonder, what is the purpose? Are we going to get answers by the end of this series? So essentially, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below as usual, what you are thinking of Btooom, what you thought of this episode, and otherwise that's going to be pretty much it for me on this one, so I'll catch you later. Peace.